What's up, guys? For this week, I will be talking to a friend of mine, Kimberly Putnoky. As for this week, I will be talking to a friend of mine, Kimberly Putnoky. She put out a book called Just Breathe, and she wrote this during the pandemic, lockdown in 2020 and everything. And Hey, what's up, guys? For this week, I'll be talking to my friend Kimberly Putnoky. She put out a book called Just Breathe, and it's fantastic. I really recommend you guys checking it out. You can get it on Amazon.com. It was really, to me, a fantastic reflection on a lot of the vulnerabilities that we really experience with love, while we are also getting over brokenness and getting over healing in areas, coming to terms with what love means to us, and the expectations of dealing with our own vulnerabilities and wounds as well as another person's, and coming to terms of what a healthy relationship looks like in the midst of all that volatility. At least that's what I got out of it. I think everyone will get something different out of it. I think there's a lot of really cool dimensions to how she wrote this book, and so to me, it's a beautiful book. It's a lot of pain wrote it, but also a lot of hope. But yeah, hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Zoom ever. I hate Zoom. I hate anything that I have to see my face.
I feel you, man. Well, dude, it's like I've noticed with these things when I shrink them into a screen, like everybody looks better, including myself. So I'm experimenting with kind of adding some quality camera shots, in my room. So if it looks bad, I just won't use them. So
Oh, I like your little setup.
man, I'm trying here, man. Like I'm actually kind of in between locations, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, and yeah, man. So I'm still kind of getting into the rhythm of doing a podcast and everything. And so the more I do it, the better I get at it, but I'm really trying to upgrade because I feel like I'm still using like older, like my webcam, for instance, is like, it's okay. But it's I don't, for some reason, I think when people watch YouTube or something, they probably subconsciously judge the quality of the video and it's just assume I'm not gonna watch that. So I have to kind of stay in with the times, just so it's of quality, and it's not like people that aren't just thinking I'm some aging millennial with like a, I don't know, iPhone 1 or something. But
Sad. We're no longer young anymore.
yeah, I know, man. Well, hey, dude, I believe age is your energy, or energy is your age, man. So,
True.
I kind of like, it's funny. I've been doing a lot of I've been doing Uber recently just to kind of supplement my income, and I'm a talker, so it's like when people get in, I mean, I have to kind of judge whether they are, but usually people are. I've like made so many friends that are like college kids that like think I'm their age, just because I've aged kind of well, but I mostly still have like an enthusiasm, like a naive enthusiasm for life. So like, I don't know, it hasn't been beat out of me yet. So
Well,
hopefully
that's good.
I know I will. It can be. That's actually one of the topics that I want to talk about with your book, because man, like, it's very. I don't know, man. I know I've known you for a good amount of time, but we probably haven't like dialogued really deep. I've always sensed like some depth with in you, and so when you wrote your book, I was very like looking forward to kind of exploring like a person that I know but I don't know that well, because it's like I think we all have like assumptions about people,
Mhm.
and just like, man, like, I don't know. I really think there's no such thing as an average person, or a person that we look at and just kind of immediately assume so many different things. Like there's a world behind their eyes that we don't really know about, And so this was like a perfect opportunity to kind of like test myself of like, man, there's all these things that I think are, um, I don't know. I tend to sometimes put people in boxes. Not that I did you, but at the same time, like I said, we all make assumptions. But I was looking forward to exploring kind of this, this really passionate work that you did and stuff. And so, I guess just to kind of set us up, man, like, um, Yeah, man, explain kind of the roots of why you decided to do this book. It's called Just Breathe, by the way, and I'm with Kimberly.
That's
Is
a
it?
lovely tattoo for it.
Yeah. Is it Putnoky?
Panaki.
Putnoky. Okay, sorry. All right, Kimberly Putnoky. So, but yeah, man, like, just kind of give us the general like story behind the book, and then I want to get into some passages I've marked, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, tell us what you tell us the genesis behind Just Breathe.
Yes. So it started with COVID and kind of like everyone, I don't know whether you're working or not. For me, I never stopped working, thankfully,
Mhm.
but everything was closed down. So instead of going out to do something, I just had a lot of time to think and reflect. Because even my job aspect was very different. So, in that aspect, I found my old journal that I had brought with me when I moved. And as I was reading it, I was like kind of embarrassed that I had written so much like sadness because I never want to say my 20s were the worst, but I would never want to relive my 20s again.
Mhm.
And so as I was reading through it, I just thought there's a lot of stuff I never actually dealt with. And a lot of it had to do with bad relationships mixed in with my own personal state of depression.
Mhm.
It didn't mix very well. And so as I was reading my little excerpts, I just kind of started writing because I always loved writing, wanted to write full time. You know, if that could ever be something I do for my life, I would love it. And I would do these little poems and send them off to my friend. And she was like, oh, these are so good. Like, keep doing it. So I was like, okay. And it
Mhm.
ended up being super cathartic. Like it was therapy. I needed therapy back in the day, but I
Mhm.
am stubborn. I'm not going to do it. Because for me, even talking about it now, I'm a happy person. So I can't go sit down to a therapist if nothing's wrong. You
Mhm.
kind of have to go to it when you're really deep into it.
Mhm.
So the more I just kept writing, the more I realized that I'm just dealing with stuff I never dealt with. Not that my relationships were bad, they just weren't good. And I couldn't see the line of stopping those relationships. So for me, I was dealing with those relationships, the mental health aspect that I've had since I was a kid, but not a lot of people knew about it. And even when I released it, I've had friends that have told me, I'm so sorry. I didn't see that you were suffering. And it was like, please don't apologize. There's a reason why you didn't see it because you weren't supposed to. We're very good at hiding it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I actually feel like in the nature of our education is everything outside ourselves. You know, we're never really taught how to process the inward things, and even in spiritual circles and in churches and stuff, man. Too often, we don't want to make a bad confession, and
mhm.
yet like the nature of our inner world is really the grounds of real spiritual growth, and it's sort of like for me it's very very backwards that we're not as encouraged to delve into the raw places, like the one, I mean, one of the biggest book in the Bible is the Psalms, and there's like some of the Psalms that are just like agonizing and just really raw. I mean, it's a great work of art regardless of what, if people believe in the Bible or not. Looking at the Psalms is just such the shades of different emotions that the human experience brings, and the importance of us processing that. I feel like the one place that we should be able to find the courage and I guess the medium to really release some of those raw emotions should be churches and spiritual circles. Now I feel like, I mean, I've been fortunate to kind of have enough people that I feel like really really kind of understood that, and so like but I feel like we're still kind of realizing the importance of it. It's like we kind of sometimes tolerate it, like, okay, tell me your problems, okay, what's the
Exactly.
solution?
Because you don't want to be like a burden. Because
Yeah.
even though to you it seems like a huge part of your life, if you keep telling it over and over again, people are
Mhm.
going to be like, just get over it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And there's also that problem that this is very very common in relationships, I guess, where like men are fixers, and so they're like, okay, let's fix the problem, and like women tend to be a little more about like, just listen to what I have to say, be present with me. And like, they value kind of that presence, because it's almost like that's the subtext for real intimacy, is that I'm not a problem that needs to be fixed. I'm a person who needs to be loved. And so, and it's like the act of just being here and kind of honoring my pain is like the place where the more you do that allows the solution to really take hold, to really take, to where it's just not about 1 + 1 = 2. It's about like, what's the nature of the problem? And it's always going to be something that implies something deeper than just, rationalizing something. There's the deeper parts of the human condition that I feel like men too often, are a little more driven to, figure out the problem. But it's like we're not problems, we're people.
Yeah.
And
just validate what we're in right now.
Absolutely. And so, man, when I was reading your book and stuff, I feel like there's kind of like this. Let me know if this is accurate, but you have it divided into 2 sections: inhale and exhale. And so the first one's kind of like that is really kind of the more raw. Like you're just kind of hitting kind of almost miscellaneous points of light to kind of illuminate the picture, essentially. And then the next part is kind of you almost piecing together the picture and kind of resolving a lot of these inner conflicts. Is that kind of an accurate? Would you say that's kind of accurate?
Yeah, I wanted the second part to be a little bit more breathable, hence the exhale portion of it, because it does end more happy, but also I did input more. There was still depression there regardless, because it doesn't go away. Like it's there. Regardless if you're in a good relationship, bad relationship, it's present.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. Yeah, let me actually, I don't know. It's weird when delving into some of these things. I don't know how long this is going to take. So I kind of want to I'm really excited to get into some of this stuff, because I know this is the thing that was weird about writing poetry and writing the way you did, is that there's a reason why you didn't write an essay. Is there's a sort of there's a certain way of expression that you're just trying to express yourself, and as you're going along, you're piecing it together. And then also the reader is kind of taken along a journey where they're probably able to kind of experience their own variation of things you experience, because there's a lot of common themes, and so I kind of want to jump in and just kind of see where this takes us, because this is actually really, there's some notes I took too, because I feel like this really offers a lot of substance that I feel like we today, by and large, kind of face similar problems. We face a lot of similar pressures, and we're still working through it, especially with social media and a lot of the pace of life and everything. It's just there's aspects of relationships in our own spiritual growth and mental growth and stuff that I don't know. I feel like in my own, in my podcast here and me telling my own story throughout this year that I'm getting ready to do and stuff, a lot of my life, a lot of my experience, I've realized is it's my issues and my problems, my own pain and stuff. It's just not tied to myself. It's an indication of so many different things that other people are going through. And when I understand myself, I'm really able to genuinely and sincerely connect with others so much better, because I'm connected within myself. I'm just not speaking to some abstraction that I don't understand. I kind of understand the rawness of what someone else is going through. And so I don't know. I feel like that's one reason why I really want to have you on, because I feel like there's the domain of human relationships, there's a lot of these things I think a lot of people are dealing with, and the way you process it and kind of introduce kind of some, I don't know, just some perspective. I think it's really important. So I wanted to start it off by just reading this, because this is something that I want to return to. And this is actually, I'm not sure if this is something that you connected, but it's something that I read this and I was like, this is actually kind of a, the way that you wrote this, there's some mystery and there's some things that you probably you may be aware of certain way things link up, but there's also some things that you may are like, wow, I didn't even see that's. So I'm going to come back to this one, but I want to start off first. But this is, I think, page 145. By the way, was there anything you wanted to add to that, by the way?
I think you're doing a fabulous job, by the way. I'm very interested to see like not only a different perspective, but the male perspective of
Yeah.
it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, it's weird. I'm a weird male. Like I'm a middle child, and so I've always kind of had like middle child isms. I feel like my theory of middle children is that without us being with us being in the midst of the family unit, but not a central point in it. Like it forces us inward and outward to kind of be observers and to be kind of self-aware, and it's weird. Like I feel like I'm still trying to piece together and embrace myself, because there is this sort of I would say, I wouldn't say forceful, but there is like a conviction to I guess my own alchemy of my own like masculinity, but there's also like an inward feminine element. Like it's something that Carl Jung talks about, the anima and the animus, and there's like the male and the female, and I feel like that sort of resolution in the person it expresses itself very deeply. So I don't know if I'm like normal or like abnormal. I'm probably abnormal, but
At the end of the day, who's normal?
exactly, man. So, but yeah, man. But yeah, this is page 145, and it says, look to the stars and draw me a constellation, a map of light that leads straight to you. And like I said, I'm going to return to that, because I feel like there's something that I really want to say about that that's really, really interesting. And this book's so full of like paradoxes and little pathways to different things. And that's the beauty of how you wrote this, is that it's almost can present, ideas that you weren't consciously aware were there, and yet there's links. So I'm going to come back to that. But the next part I want to read is kind of a longer passage, and this is probably going to be full of goodies. So I'll see if I can get through it. But your wound is beautiful and complex. It's the story of how you breathed in another day that only ever wanted to take the air from your lungs and silence you. Only you silenced it with another breath. Your wound shows resilience, because even though it healed with a mark that screams, I am here and I survived. That's really powerful, man. It's very, very simple, and yet it really, the nature of life, like I talk about this a lot, how the nature of life is unconditional. Like we're born into this world without ever having asked for our existence. The nature of life is like the Big Bang or something, where it's like, and then there was light, bam, and that nature of life to move forward is in us all. And I think you captured so beautifully that ability for us to focus on that certainty of the positivity of life, because that's what steers us through the tribulations. I mean, sometimes all you see is black, all you see is darkness, and there's just, all you have is this little nugget of faith, this little kernel that you have to grip onto it and simply, just follow it almost blindly. But it's not blindly, because there is this belief of the goodness of life, and I feel like, that's in some of my darkest days and some of my darkest moments. That simple disbelief in it is like enough to steer you through, the storm,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's not shy. It poses proudly that it's indestructible. Your wound beats the blood through you. It gets stomped on with very little hesitation and traded around, yet it holds hope, clinging with every beat that it will fill with love that it beats for. Your wound is a heart that is protected by many layers of scars that only strengthened over time, and once the words of love are spoken and surges through that wound, will come back to life, a beautiful beating heart. I made a note here, and I wanted to mention this, that, and I'll get your thoughts on this, because there's this weird, it's difficult to talk about spiritual and inward wounds, because they're not physical wounds. They're, we have a physical body, and yet the only thing we have to really sort of allegorize our inward pains with the physical body. So when we talk about a wound, it doesn't mean that like literally somewhere in you you're bleeding. You know, it's just where our sensation of pain is, I guess, psychologized. I'm using big words here, and you know, that it's a there's a certain substance there to refer to things with that certainty. At the same time, because we can't really see it, we can't really see our soul and these things. We have to kind of navigate it through feeling, you know, and through I guess kind of finding out for ourselves, you know, experimenting with our own healing, and like how do I feel more whole? How do I connect myself inside myself? And I wrote here something really that I thought was really cool, because it's really inspired like kind of a thought that where the heart heals is where it learns difficult truths from pain that drains naivete from love. So love is capable of loving with open eyes, as if for the first time, because it is the first time, and the last time, because no other love can really exist afterward that isn't with open eyes. So that's kind of a long thought there. But when you talk about like a heart that experiences wounds, you know, and the scarring and everything, and but you also refer to it as being strengthened over time. And you know, when love comes, you know, and it surges, you know, it surges through that wound, will come back to life, a beautiful beating heart. Describe your own thoughts with that, and how I just kind of, you know, my own thoughts there about how, you know, when the heart kind of really begins to heal, it's almost like it learns like these difficult truths of life. Sometimes that's very, very personal. Like sometimes it's fact oriented, confronting the nature of different relationships or aspects of relationships, you know, but because our eyes are kind of opened, because we are, it allows us to really love, because it's not just loving in a mere emotional sense. It's a choice, because it can see issues in somebody, and it can see good and bad, but then choose love, you know, so yeah. What are some thoughts about that, about the heart healing, and you know, and going through wounds, but then it not becoming hardened, but somehow coming out, and almost there's like this a redemptive story to our own pain if we can cooperate with going through some of this.
Yeah. So a little like backstory, this particular piece is kind of something I wrote for me and my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So at any relationship, when you're getting involved with them, you've got baggage as much as they got baggage. You both have been hurt in different times of your life.
Yeah.
So kind of in the aspect of, yes, my heart was not okay. It was just there. You know, we have to kind of work on understanding that you have had pain in your past. I didn't cause that, just like you didn't cause me that pain, but we have to figure out how to not fix each other, but just kind of not break it again, and show that your heart, like you said, it's going to be stronger than ever because it's been broken, but there's a beautifulness about it being broken to begin with. I feel like you appreciate it more. You know what you can survive. You know that you're resilient. I actually really liked what you wrote. I wish you would write your own, because that was really beautiful. I was like, dang, that's nice.
if
I
I can say
that to it.
Yeah, if I can stay focused enough, I'm writing like 5 different books right now, so it's just the nature of me staying focused. It's just like, it's like my
Stay focused, because I do want to read it. Like,
okay, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think my favorite, I'm trying to kind of read it as you're reading it as well, because it's been kind of a hot minute.
Yeah. Page 191. Sorry.
Okay, so the last line that you said, like, it only strengthened over time once the words of love are spoken. Coming from an experience, you know, for me, I didn't throw that word around ever. What I felt is not necessarily what I've said. You may have feelings, but for me, I'm very scared of saying the word "I love you." That just means so much commitment. Even if you're in a relationship, that is super validating what you're feeling in your heart. And using that as an experience is just more for me, like, I've heard that love, and I can feel like your heart is truly mending itself, because I'm allowing it to actually go into that now. If I don't know if that makes sense. I don't want to be cocky. I'm a better writer than I am speaker. Let's be realistic.
Yeah, no.
Not always good talking.
That was one thing that I didn't want to like burden you with, is that the reason why you wrote this is because it was the nature of it is very complicated to navigate our own emotions, and it wasn't like you structured the science of your psyche and your some total human experience. This is a work of poetry. It's a work of healing, and it's almost like going through it. It's like you can't be expected to perfectly articulate, but it is interesting just to like get a certain perspective of the author behind the words. And so even if it's like not perfect, it's not expected to be, because we're human, man. Like I do my very, very best, and I've learned over time to articulate and stuff, but there's still times where it's like you do the best you can and someone still misunderstands you. You're like, good God,
I should have practiced before coming on here.
Nah, dude, you're doing fine. You're doing awesome, man. Like it's really we're kind of getting into the humanity of things, where it's one thing to say something profound, but it's just as in fact it's more effective to summarize it into a very, very simple way. So it's whatever ways that you can illuminate these things, man. You're not forced to that's probably, I don't think anyone can actually do that, to really plumb the depths of everything that they possibly are into what they have said. It's very hard, and that's why but there is a need for us to be understood in some ways, man. And usually like the incompletion or the ways that something we write or something we work on doesn't fully reflect us or reflect the sum total of what we have to say is the very thing that inspires us to write something else.
Yeah, 100%.
So as we're navigating these things, man, hopefully in some ways we approach pockets of latent inspiration for things that you may write further. So, if there's uncertainty or if there's areas of like, I don't know, that's great too. And yes. Was there anything else that you were? I interrupted you. I apologize.
Oh, no, you're fine. Mm-hmm. I should have asked you for a questions list.
I know. Yeah.
I thought about that after the fact.
Yeah, I know. Or I should have given you these passages to kind of like reflect on, man. But, dude, it's weird. Usually in the past I've done that, but I was just like, heck.
Moving.
Yeah. So,
no, this other passage, this is 195. I loved as if I had never been broken. That was the beauty of strength. I love that, man. That's really, delve into that a little bit. Because that's really, really like, I feel like this is a book of redemption, honestly. It's a book of you redeeming your pain, being able to kind of approach a lot of the darker areas of your life, and yet in the midst of that, kind of creating a certain certainty in yourself regarding what love means to you, and kind of experience your own capacity to give of that in a way that you never did before unless you had endured some of the trials and tribulations and stuff. That's a very, very short passage, but if you could kind of summarize with your own experience and stuff, that sort of redemption story, I guess you could say. I don't know, how would you go about saying, or how would you go about describing that little that passage alone is kind of the whole book almost in a nutshell. But there's a lot of detail there that's probably very interesting. I mean, anything that comes to mind that you think is kind of noteworthy?
I think just the basic of, it's like very cliche, but like when you do meet that person that you just can't help but to kind of release yourself from being scared, from holding back. That was me. Like I didn't like dating. I hated dating. I'm a very awkward person. And, sometimes I'm not one to want to jump into anything, but for my person, he was so different than anyone I had dated and been in a relationship with. It was kind of like, wait a second, why are you with me? Like, why are you interested?
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember when he, had told me that he loved me for the first time, I didn't say it back because I was like, wait a second, you love me? We never did this, right? So I waited, I think, a whole day to tell him because I was so scared to say it, thinking it was going to end. But I know the moment that I said it, I just felt at peace. Like I was so comfortable with it. I didn't think back to any time I was heartbroken. I just felt like I was giving this person my heart and that was the end of it.
Wow.
That was the first time I ever did that. Like I said, I've never said I love you to a previous relationship, even if I felt it, didn't want to say it. So I feel like when you truly know in your heart, you don't feel any pain that you've ever felt before, which is remarkable.
Wow, that is remarkable. It's probably even kind of inconceivable. Like, one thing that I feel like in some of the darker passages I could relate with is that, man, there is that feeling that you have of like in your darker moments of like, okay, will life always be this way, or is there? Because it's almost like we come into this world and we experience the joy of life so effortlessly, and then we kind of accumulate pain, and our identity becomes kind of
Fractionalized.
Happening and
yeah, and we don't realize that the ego is almost constructed as a means of like it's a means of being able to what's the word? It's like the ego is a means of us being able to endure our existence, our relationships. So we kind of construct somebody, and so we imitate. And there's enough of us in that ego identity to have some fulfillment, but to really open up and to like be really ourselves is something that I think we really all probably struggle with, because it's not really rewarded in a way in our society. We're much more rewarded to kind of to kind of be an archetype, to be just an overwhelming character where people can simplify and understand your energy and you got it. I know in my own life I've had to experiment with my own ability to, because my nature is if I go out in 5 minutes, I'm talking about like philosophy, I'm talking about God, talking about things, because it's so easy. I'm like, so yeah, what's your childhood trauma? And it's like
People can't handle that. So it's almost like I'm having to learn, okay, so how can I
effortlessly be so welcoming to other people to where I convert this depth into really loving people where they are, because they may not want to get into intellectual conversation. They may just want to I don't know, just they may just want to have a good time in a certain way, and they and usually at some point people will open up because they sense that there's more to you. But I don't know, we're so we're very, very encouraged to kind of be a caricature or to be a persona, as opposed to really like telling it like it is. And we're getting better with that. I feel like there's a sort of, I think we really are feeling more and more in our overlapping generations. We're feeling the need to be real and to, and I feel like just the weight of superficiality can only be kind of held for so long, like you can only
like your parents or grandparents, they don't talk about anything bad going on in their life or family. It's hush hush. So I feel like that's a huge issue with mental health as it is. I think our generation is talking more about it now because it's more evident with like celebrities killing themselves. And we're like, Robin Williams, happiest guy ever, but he wasn't happy. So I think us starting the conversation as our age is going to help the next generation.
Absolutely.
They should be comfortable speaking about it.
Yeah. I feel like there's such a positive response and a desire to talk about these things, especially from the last couple of years and stuff, that we're all, man, we all are still processing things and still kind of realizing the importance of our own inward development. Because when you have a pandemic and where we're locked down and stuff, it's like you quickly realize that, there's so much that I need to unpack and still have left to unpack, that you're removed from the busyness of life, and
you're faced with it.
Yeah. And so, anyway, I'm talking forever here, but No, I agree with you though. I feel like the more I've been able to, and then kind of what I want to do with a lot of with my music, with my writing, with this podcast and everything, I want to approach mental health from a very optimistic perspective because mental health sounds kind of way too academic. You know, it sounds like there's all these disorders and there's these things, there's all this thing, and that's fine. It's good to that's cool. But I feel like the root of mental health is really our own joy, our own ability to process ourselves. And so there's at root of all that, there's this thirst for inward knowledge, for self knowledge. And I feel like it's up to us, people like us, that we can genuinely share ourselves, share our struggles, also share most of all our the redemptive qualities to how we've been able to work through our pain, work through things that, I mean, man, like I can remember, in my darker moments as a teenager, man, just not being able to conceive, even in my 20s, being able to not really conceive of getting out of this and realizing that my pain isn't something your pain shouldn't be something that you simply want to get rid of. You have to process it. And that's where it's not like physical pain. It's one thing when your body has physical pain, but physical pain is where your body is telling you something's wrong. And pain is something that our immediate temptation is that we want the pain to go away without realizing that it's actually the deeper thing that's causing the pain that needs to be addressed. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of what we both are probably processing in our different things that we're doing. I like this. This is, speaking of the pandemic, like this made me kind of chuckle, but it's like, so like it's very profound also. Like it says, I carry a piece of paper in my bag that notes I'm essential. I should have been carrying that around the whole time. That's like really, it's funny, but it's so like, it's a great line because it's, who isn't essential? It's like that whole idea is,
depends on how you're validated by people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I think in terms of love, your own self-love and your own ability to kind of value yourself as the essential thing that stems everything else from, it was a really funny line, but I thought it was a great way of like articulating a very, very simple truth. Love cannot simply be defined. It reaches far beyond a touch that gives off a spark, a simple glance that captures your attention, a moment that steadies your breathing while your heart thumps louder. Love is brutal honesty. It's chaos that brings an inferno. Love is whatever you define it to be. That's really powerful, man.
So I'm curious, what do you define love to be?
Well, there's two answers to that. One is very intellectual, which indicates really what it should be, which is not intellectual. It's an experience. For me, because I think I've been with a lot of the OCD stuff and everything. I've described the process of what I call Shawshanking my way, to healing, where I'm just trying to get one little more nugget at a time, to like get out of where I am, and it's almost like the prison that I thought I was in was something that I felt I had to like dig all these tunnels to get out of, and when the whole time like the door was unlocked, and for me, love first comes from the understanding that life is unconditional. And what stems from our understanding of unconditional life is unconditional love, because to me, love is sort of that unconditional life, kind of translated into our ability to relate with ourselves and each other. And so there's a sort of inward fidelity to alignment and to what our understanding of what is true and what is not true in an intellectual sense, but true in my own alignment. So whenever I experience something that challenges my alignment, there's enough importance I've put on this this sense that I've developed within myself of being of having a kind of an infrastructure that holds reality in a way that understands myself and understands other people. And so my ability to understand and choose to understand, to me, that to choose to have an understanding of someone, but understanding someone isn't fully loving them. It's that, to me, it's the necessary conditions of experiencing love. To really bond is to be able to notice whether this person has some sort of issue that I'm becoming like their newest addiction, or I'm becoming like they're not really loving me, they're loving an idea of me, which is I think is very, very, very common for women especially. And, because
you want like the perfect love story, the perfect love partner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think
that love, but not in love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's maybe we as men and women have the same problem because our ideas of what we want what we want that person to be, that may be different, but the same problem kind of lies to fall in love with your idea of who a person is rather than who they really are. And so it's almost like, that's why to really being able to navigate your own self, being able to appropriately say, okay, the person that I have to accept myself as being the person who I have to value more than anybody else, and not in the sense of like it being being a sociopath or whatever, but in a very practical way of saying, okay, in order for me to really accept someone, I have to have that idea of what that acceptance even looks like, or else I'm just blindly imitating what this acceptance is, and there's a numbness there. To really feel present with someone, they're present with you, and so you have to learn how to be present with yourself. And so we keep going back. I keep going back to that idea, but that's the kind of this. There's a real. I feel like right now more than ever, there's that kind of idea of everything stemming from my own acceptance and my own love that's properly orientated, because we've kind of had beat into us this notion of self-love or self-fulfillment as being kind of a selfish thing. In fact, I had a guest on where he even will just refer to it as you have to be selfish sometimes, and I know what he means, because it's like, it feels that way. It feels like, but if my self-nourishment is the thing that spurs healthy relationships, then it's not selfish. It's actually, I'm thinking of other people, because it's the direct line of that sort of train of consequence, that as I nourish myself, I have something to give to someone else, and
because like it's a cliche thing, like in order to love someone else, you have to love yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
You have to accept your flaws for that other person to accept your flaws.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to work.
Absolutely. And well, let me ask you, what were some of the flaws? What are some of the things that you had to look at in your own life, in your own, like, what were some of the areas that were very, very crucial for you to begin to release some of this, your own acceptance in yourself and to process some of these things? What are some of the areas of maybe vulnerability and acceptance that may even apply to other people, To
be honest, like not using my voice.
Mm.
I keep very quiet because my fear is I don't want them to leave me. I don't want them not to love me or like me.
Mm.
So that was my biggest thing I had to work on myself. I didn't use my voice, and it got to the point where obviously relationships ended, or I took them back without an apology because I loved them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think I didn't know how to just have standards for myself. I just let, you get walked on. And for me, I just, at a certain point, just felt like that's all that was going to be given to me. Like I didn't deserve anything higher because I had the lowest of standards for the guys I was dating. Not that they're bad people.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship just wasn't good,
Mm-hmm.
But for me, before I met this person, I just had to really look at myself and be like, I am actually worth this much. I'm not going to settle for less. If this guy doesn't do this, that's the end of it. Why should I settle for something so much lower when at the end of the day, it doesn't make me happy?
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me cry. It makes me sad. It makes me question, should I even be here?
Mm.
So it's definitely been a process.
Mm-hmm.
He still puts up with me, thank God. So that helps.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, even like we're going on 6 years this month, and it's still, I've had to learn things even now of how to deal with the relationship because I didn't have that in previous relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So if we, communicate, maybe my communication isn't the best because now I actually do have a voice and I'm using it, but it's loud. I don't know how to speak quietly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to yell. I can just talk to you like a conversation if I don't feel comfortable about something or if I'm mad at you for something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a never ending process of learning you, I think.
Yeah.
You're always learning more about yourself.
Yeah. I feel like too, there's a certain frequency that you have to kind of dial in with someone where you have to know the tone and know the way, because too often if you come at it just, directly, it kind of,
or you speak very loudly, but you're not yelling.
Yeah. There's ways of actually kind of running along someone and saying something as opposed to like, bam, like politics. This happens all the time. Like with people that have different opinions, they think they're going to convert someone by just like owning them and just like, bam, whatever. And you're just driving them away. You're driving them into their own arms because you're not articulating any sort of desire to understand where they're coming from. Anytime I've ever allowed my emotions to get to me and I've really come forcefully at someone without, real presence. It's not that we don't get angry, but we have to, anger is a choice. And too often anger is more of a reaction and then we're not choosing, that we're kind of becoming possessed with unconscious energy that we haven't really confronted, but we're now using the opportunity to let it out,
Just load.
Yeah. And certain ways in a relationship that plays out, of realizing that there has to be this degree of processing that allows your voice to be heard and allows you to feel seen and to really feel valued. It's weird, man. Like I've been kind of cursed sometimes with like this hyper awareness that I will either be seeing someone for a short period of time and I immediately know in my gut that it feels like I when you eat like cake or pie or candy, it tastes good at first, but then it's like the next day if you keep eating it, you just feel like crap, and after a while you're just like I want a salad. And it's like when you're not with someone who's nourishing your own different areas, it checks kind of all the boxes, not all of them, but you feel like you're actually growing with the person, man. I mean, honestly, it's like it's almost a form of torture. You're torturing yourself, and it's just I can pick up on that so quickly that it's just like I wish sometimes I wouldn't have this ability, and maybe it is some fear, in there, but there's I understand you're not going to find someone who's perfect, and to me, that's why even someone being aware of their own imperfections in a healthy way, but still kind of having enough certainty to have, the certain confidence in their development. That's to me, that's a very, very attractive trait, man. To me, that's being sane, like being someone who is so in tune with like the condition of humanity. Too often I will attract damaged people and,
because you want to fix them.
Well, I mean,
it's weird. I know we're all kind of damaged, but at the same time, like there is like there's a certain length that you have to draw back from. There's a certain boundary that you can only go so far, and once you feel like you're compromising yourself, I don't know. How do you feel about that in your own experience, like with your trying to determine where your boundaries are and how two imperfect people should have not a perfect relationship, but a perfectly imperfect relationship?